Dr. Freya Winters stood at the window of the Svalbard research station, watching ribbons of green aurora dance across the Arctic sky. The magnetometer readings had been off the charts for the past week, showing patterns unlike anything recorded in the facility's 30-year history. As the lead researcher in atmospheric phenomena, she knew something unprecedented was happening in the polar magnetosphere. Dr. Winters. Raj Kumar, her youngest researcher, burst into the observation room. The signal pattern, it's changed. It's forming geometric shapes. Freya rushed to the monitoring station where holographic displays showed the magnetic field measurements. The usual chaotic waves had transformed into precise hexagonal patterns that pulsed with an almost mathematical precision. 20 years of scientific experience told her this wasn't natural. "Get Director Nakamura," she ordered, her fingers flying across the haptic interface. "And contact the radio astronomy team. I want to know if they're picking up anything unusual." Before Raj could reach the door, a low humming filled the station. The lights flickered, and every electronic device in the room began cycling through their startup sequences. Through the reinforced windows, the aurora had transformed from its usual green curtain into a spiral of blue and gold that seemed to be descending directly toward their facility. Director Jun Nakamura arrived just as the first object emerged from the spiral. It was sleek in silver, roughly the size of a small aircraft, but moved with an organic grace that defied conventional aerodynamics. Behind it came another, and another, until 7 vessels hung in formation above the station. "My God," Nakamura whispered, pressing his hand against the glass. "We're about to make history, aren't we?" The answer came moments later when the first vessel landed in the station's courtyard, its hull seamlessly morphing to form landing gear. The surface of the ship rippled like quicksilver, and an opening appeared. Through the swirling snow stepped a figure that made everyone in the observation room catch their breath. It was roughly humanoid but covered in silvery fur that shifted colors like the aurora above. Its face was vulpine, with an elegant muzzle and large, intelligent eyes that glowed with an inner light. The being wore what appeared to be a single piece of flowing material that responded to its movements like liquid metal. More figures emerged, each unique in their fur patterns but sharing the same fox-like features. They moved with a fluid grace that suggested complete comfort in the Arctic environment. "This is what we've been preparing for," Freya said, straightening her jacket. "Raj, initiate first contact protocols." "Director, we should dash." She was cut off by a soft chime that seemed to resonate within their minds rather than their ears. The lead alien had raised a hand, and floating above it was a holographic display showing Earth's solar system, with a series of paths marked in glowing lines. "They're trying to show us something," Nakamura said. "Something about their journey here." The hologram zoomed in on Earth, highlighting a network of points that corresponded with the planet's strongest magnetic fields. The Arctic station's location pulsed with particular brightness. Freya's scientific mind was already racing with implications. "They're using Earth's magnetic field for navigation, possibly even for power." The aurora patterns weren't just a side effect, they were creating a pathway. The lead alien stepped forward, its movements deliberately slow and non-threatening. It raised both hands, palms forward, and the air between them and the human seemed to shimmer. Suddenly, Freya felt a gentle presence brush against her consciousness, not invasive, but inviting. Images began flowing into her mind, a distant world of crystalline cities and aurora-lit skies, a civilization that had mastered the art of binding energy and matter through thought alone, and a desperate journey across the stars fleeing from something that made her blood run cold. When the connection faded, Freya found herself gripping the observation desk for support. The aliens, the Luminari, as they had shared in their mental communication, hadn't come to Earth by chance. They were seeking allies, and they had chosen humanity's most isolated outpost to make first contact for a reason. "Director," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she'd just learned, "we need to contact the UN Security Council immediately. But more importantly..." She turned to look at their visitors, who waited with infinite patience in the swirling snow. We need to prepare for what's coming. Through the window, the aurora continued to dance, but now its light seemed to pulse in harmony with the subtle glow emanating from their otherworldly guests. As Freya watched the luminari arrange themselves in a ceremonial pattern, she knew that humanity's understanding of its place in the universe was about to change forever. In the distance, more lights began to appear in the sky, and the magnetic readings started climbing again. This wasn't just first contact, it was the beginning of an alliance that would reshape both their species' destinies. 2 weeks after first contact, the Svalbard research station had transformed into a hive of international activity. Beneath the perpetual Arctic night, Freya stood in a newly excavated chamber 300 meters below the ice sheet, staring at what would rewrite human history. "The dating can't be right," Professor Nikolai Volkov muttered, running his quantum scanner over the metallic walls for the 100th time. "This structure is showing an age of at least 12,000 years. The chamber was part of a vast complex their luminary allies had helped them locate, a previous outpost of their civilization, hidden beneath the ice since before the last ice age. The walls were made of the same shifting metal as their ships, still active after millennia, covered in flowing scripts that changed color when touched. Zena, the luminary cultural attaché, approached them with that distinctive liquid grace characteristic of her species. Her fur rippled with patterns of blue and silver that matched the ancient walls. "The dating is accurate," she communicated directly into their minds. "This was one of our primary observation posts during the Great Migration." Freya had grown somewhat accustomed to the telepathic communication, though it still sent shivers down her spine. "You were here during the last ice age. Observing us?" "Protecting you," Zena corrected, placing her hand on one of the walls. The entire chamber hummed to life, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. From them, the hologram showed a massive spacecraft, black as the void and seemingly designed to inspire terror. Its surface was covered in what looked like organic growths, pulsing with an sickly green energy. "The void plague," Zena explained, her mental voice carrying undertones of ancient dread. "They are why we fled our home system. Why we scattered across the galaxy, hiding in magnetic fields where their sensors cannot penetrate." Professor Volkov adjusted his glasses, studying the hologram with intense fascination. "And they followed you to Earth?" "They followed us everywhere." "But Earth?" Zena's eyes glowed brighter. "Earth was special. Your planet's magnetic field is unique, powerful enough to hide our presence, yet dynamic enough to allow us to harness its energy. We established these bases to monitor both your development and maintain an early warning system." Freya's mind raced with implications. The ancient myths of fox spirits, of magical beings appearing in the night, those weren't just stories, were they? Zena's mental response carried a hint of warmth. "Some of our younger ones became curious about your species. There were occasional interactions, though we tried to minimize them. Your development needed to be natural, uninfluenced." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the surface. Director Nakamura's voice crackled over the comm system. "Dr. Winters, we're detecting unusual activity in the magnetosphere. The luminary ships are all powering up." Zena's fur suddenly bristled, its colors shifting to deep crimson. Without a word, she bounded toward the chamber's exit with supernatural speed. Freya and Volkov rushed to follow her through the winding tunnels their teams had excavated. When they reached the surface, the sight stole their breath away. The aurora had turned a violent red, and the luminary vessels were arranged in a defensive formation above the station. Through gaps in the clouds, they could see multiple objects entering the atmosphere, angular, black shapes that seemed to devour the light around them. "They found us," Zena projected, her mental voice tight with controlled fear. "After 12,000 years, they've detected our activation of the ancient base." Director Nakamura was already coordinating with military forces from a dozen nations, but Freya knew conventional weapons would be useless against an enemy that had driven the technologically superior Luminari into hiding. "The base," she said suddenly, grabbing Zena's arm. You said it was a warning system, but it has to be more than that. Your people wouldn't have built something this extensive just to watch. Zena's eyes locked onto hers. It was also a weapon. But activating it fully would create an electromagnetic pulse that would destroy every piece of human technology within 1,000 kilometers. How long until those ships reach us? Nakamura demanded. 10 minutes, maybe less, Volkov answered, checking his instruments. Freya looked at the approaching void ships, then at the small research station that had become humanity's first line of defense against an ancient enemy. Director, begin evacuation procedures. Professor, download everything you can from the base's databases. Zena. She took a deep breath. Show me how to activate the weapon. The Luminari's fur rippled with surprise. You would sacrifice your technology. All of your research. To save our world from the fate that befell yours. Freya managed a grim smile. That's not even a choice. As they rushed back into the ancient base, Freya caught a last glimpse of the red aurora above. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would change the course of human history, assuming they survived to record it. Deep beneath the ice, the ancient machinery began to hum as it awakened from its millennia-long slumber. The real question wasn't whether they could activate it in time, but whether humanity was ready for what would come after. The war that had shaped the galaxy for countless generations was about to gain new participants, ready or not. The electromagnetic pulse from the ancient Luminari base had done more than just disable the approaching void-plagued ships, it had awakened something in the human witnesses. As Freya helped salvage equipment from the darkened research station, she could feel it, a subtle humming at the edge of her consciousness, like a radio trying to tune into a distant frequency. The exposure to the pulse has accelerated certain potentials within your species, Zena explained as she helped coordinate the evacuation. Her fur now shimmered with patterns of deep purple and gold, reflecting the renewed aurora above. We had theorized this might happen, based on our previous observations. Around them, other humans who had been present during the pulse were reporting similar experiences. Professor Volkov stood entranced, watching ripples of energy dance between his fingertips. Two research assistants were communicating without speaking, their newfound abilities manifesting in different ways. You knew this would happen? Freya asked, trying to focus as new sensations flooded her awareness. The magnetic field lines of Earth were becoming visible to her, a web of brilliant energy coursing around the planet. We suspected, Zena corrected. Your species has always had the potential for electromagnetic sensitivity. It's why we chose Earth as a sanctuary millennia ago. The pulse simply unlocked what was dormant. Director Nakamura approached them, his typically composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. The UN Security Council is demanding answers. And the void-plagued ships, though disabled, are still in our atmosphere. We need a plan. The black ships hung motionless in the sky, their organic-looking surfaces now dead and inert. But everyone knew this was only a scouting party. More would come. The pulse was a temporary solution, Zena projected, including all nearby humans in her mental broadcast. But it has given us an opportunity. With your awakened abilities and our technology, we might finally have a chance to end this war. A sleek shuttle descended from one of the Luminari vessels, its surface rippling like liquid starlight. From it emerged Thyran, the Luminari's military commander, his fur a striking pattern of silver and crimson. The transformation is proceeding faster than we anticipated, he communicated. We must begin training immediately. Over the next several hours, as military forces secured the area and scientists studied the disabled void ships, the Luminari began teaching the affected humans to control their new abilities. Freya found she could perceive and manipulate magnetic fields with increasing precision. Volkov discovered he could interface directly with technology, his consciousness extending into the digital realm. Others developed varying abilities related to energy manipulation and electromagnetic perception. Your adaptability is remarkable, Thyran observed as Freya successfully levitated a piece of metal using magnetic field manipulation. It took our ancestors generations to develop these skills naturally. But why now? Freya asked, carefully setting the metal down. Why reveal all this when you've stayed hidden for so long? Xena and Thyran exchanged a look that carried volumes of unspoken communication. Finally, Xena stepped forward, her mental voice grave. Because the Void Plague is evolving. The ships we disabled today carry traces of a new biotechnology. They're attempting to weaponize Earth's magnetic field itself. If they succeed, Thyran continued, no planet will be safe. They will turn our greatest defense into a weapon of mass extinction. We need humanity's help not just to fight, but to innovate. Your species sees patterns we miss, develops solutions we would never conceive. A commotion from the research station interrupted them. Professor Volkov emerged, his eyes wide with excitement. You need to see this, he said, leading them to a hastily reconstructed computer lab. I've been interfacing with the recovered data from the Void ships. Their new weapon. It's not just targeting magnetic fields, it's targeting consciousness itself. On the screens, complex data streams showed the Void Plague's plan, to use Earth's magnetic field as a conduit to connect and corrupt all conscious minds within its reach. It would turn planets into psychic wastelands, populated by hollow shells serving the Plague's inscrutable purpose. That's why you helped unlock our abilities, Freya realized, turning to the Luminari. You're not just looking for allies, you need our unique consciousness to help create a defense. Yes, Xena admitted. But there's more. The data your professor recovered suggests the Void Plague will return in force within 3 days. And this time, a simple electromagnetic pulse won't be enough to stop them. Director Nakamura, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Then we have 3 days to turn a handful of humans with newfound abilities into soldiers capable of fighting an ancient enemy. And somehow develop a defense against a weapon that hasn't been invented yet. No, Freya said, her mind racing with possibilities as she felt the magnetic fields pulse around them. We have 3 days to prove why the Luminari were right to trust humanity in the first place. Professor, gather every scientist who can still work technology. Director, we need to coordinate with every research facility still operating outside the pulse radius. And Xena. She turned to her alien ally. Show us everything you know about consciousness transfer. I have an idea. The aurora borealis shimmered overhead, its patterns now visible to all of them as more than just light. It was a reminder of the power that had always flowed through their world, waiting to be harnessed. As humans and Luminari began working together in earnest, Freya couldn't help but wonder if this was the moment both species had been unconsciously preparing for through all their long histories. The real question was whether 3 days would be enough to prepare for what was coming. 72 hours had transformed the Arctic Research Station into humanity's most advanced defense center. Freya stood in the newly constructed neural interface chamber, watching as humans and Luminari worked in perfect synchronization, their enhanced consciousness allowing them to coordinate without speaking. Professor Volkov's fingers danced across holographic displays as he finalized the integration of Luminari technology with Earth's remaining satellite network. The consciousness bridge is stable, he reported. We can theoretically link every awakened human and Luminari mind into a single defensive network. Theoretically isn't good enough, Thyran projected, his fur crackling with intense blue energy. The Void Plague fleet will exit hyperspace in less than 2 hours. Freya approached the central platform, a circular array of crystalline pillars infused with both human and Luminari technology. This was the culmination of her idea, a way to use their combined consciousness to transform Earth's magnetic field into a weapon against the Void Plague's psychic assault. The simulations are promising, Xena added, her mental voice carrying undertones of both hope and concern. But linking so many minds has never been attempted. The strain could be significant. Director Nakamura entered the chamber, followed by military leaders from a dozen nations. Global defensive forces are in position. All major population centers have been equipped with the electromagnetic shielding we developed. But if your plan fails... It won't, Freya said with more confidence than she felt. She turned to address the assembled group. The Void Plague thinks they can use Earth's magnetic field to corrupt consciousness itself. But they don't understand what consciousness really is, especially not human consciousness. She gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's magnetic field lines. For millennia, the Luminari have used these fields for protection, for power, for travel. But humans? We dream. We imagine. We see patterns and possibilities that defy logical explanation. When our consciousness joins with Luminari precision and control, we create something entirely new, Xena finished, her fur rippling with anticipation. The alert system blared suddenly. On the main screen, hundreds of Void Plague ships began emerging from hyperspace, massive, twisted forms that seemed to bend reality around them. At their center was a vessel larger than any they'd seen, its surface writhing with sickly green energy. That's their consciousness weapon, Volkov said, reading the energy signatures. It's already trying to interface with Earth's magnetic field. Freya felt it, a cold, alien pressure trying to seep into her mind. Around the chamber, others winced as they sensed it too. There was no more time for preparation. Everyone to your positions, she ordered. Humans and Luminari moved to the crystalline pillars, placing their hands on the smooth surfaces. Freya took her place at the central node, with Xena and Thyran flanking her. Remember, Xena projected to all of them, once we're linked, maintain your individual identity. Don't let the collective consciousness overwhelm you. Freya nodded and activated the system. Energy surged through the crystals, and suddenly her consciousness expanded exponentially. She felt every mind in the chamber, human and Luminari, flowing into a vast network of thought and perception. Through their combined awareness, she could see the Void Plague ships with perfect clarity, could feel their corrupt intention trying to poison Earth's magnetic field. But something else was happening. As human creativity merged with Luminari control, the magnetic fields began to move in ways that defied conventional physics. The aurora above the station expanded, forming patterns that reflected their combined consciousness. Through their linked minds, Freya shared her plan. Not to fight the Void Plague's weapon, but to transform it. To take their attempt to corrupt consciousness and turn it into a bridge, not for control, but for understanding. The Void Plague ships launched their weapon, a wave of sickly green energy that pulsed along Earth's magnetic field lines. But as it encountered their combined consciousness, something remarkable happened. The energy began to change, transformed by the unpredictable creativity of human minds guided by Luminari precision. Instead of corrupting consciousness, the weapon became a window into the Void Plague itself. Through this connection, they finally saw the truth: the plague wasn't just an enemy, but a wounded consciousness itself, twisted by ancient trauma into something that sought to corrupt rather than connect. Now, Freya projected through the network. Every linked mind focused their combined will, using the plague's own weapon to send not destruction, but healing. Understanding. Connection. The massive void ship at the center of the fleet began to transform, its twisted surface smoothing as the consciousness within it remembered what it had once been. The green energy pulsed once, twice, and then shifted to a brilliant blue that spread rapidly through the entire fleet. As their shared consciousness maintained the bridge, they received something unexpected: gratitude. The Void Plague had been waiting for millennia for someone to see them, to understand them, to help them remember what they had lost. The battle was over, but the revelation it brought would change everything they thought they knew about consciousness, about reality, about the very nature of conflict itself. As the neural link began to fade, Freya caught a glimpse of something vast and ancient stirring in the depths of space, something that suggested their journey was only beginning. 1 month after the transformation of the Void Plague, the Svalbard research station had become the epicenter of a new era in human-Luminari relations. The facility, now expanded to 10 times its original size, hummed with the energy of countless minds working in harmony. Freya stood on the observation deck, watching a transformed void ship land gracefully beside luminary vessels. Its once twisted surface now shimmered with patterns of blue and silver, reflecting its healed consciousness within. The beings that emerged, neither fully void or fully separate, called themselves the Harmonious, and they brought with them knowledge that spanned eons. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Professor Volkov joined her at the window, his consciousness gently brushing against hers in what had become a common form of greeting. That understanding could accomplish what warfare couldn't. The real work is just beginning, Freya replied, gesturing to the massive construction project visible on the horizon. The first of many consciousness integration centers was taking shape, places where humans could safely develop their new abilities while learning from both luminary and harmonious teachers. Xena approached, her fur now displaying complex patterns that seemed to shift between dimensions. The Council of Earth has reached a decision, she projected, including both humans in her mental broadcast. They're ready to proceed with the Constellation Protocol. The Constellation Protocol, humanity's most ambitious project yet. Using their combined technologies and abilities, they plan to extend Earth's magnetic field protection to other vulnerable worlds, creating a network of protected planets linked by consciousness and purpose. Director Nakamura entered the observation deck, accompanied by Thyran and a harmonious elder named Vesh. The latter's form shifted constantly between solid and energy, a visual representation of their evolved state. The first wave of human volunteers has been cleared for off-world training, Nakamura announced. And the Harmonious have agreed to share their quantum navigation technology. We can begin establishing the network within months. There's something else, Vesh communicated, their thoughts carrying layers of meaning that rippled through the shared consciousness. Our deep space probes have detected anomalies. Patterns in the cosmic background radiation that suggest we're not alone in this endeavor. Holographic displays activated, showing mysterious structures at the edges of known space, vast networks of energy that looked suspiciously like artificial magnetic fields on a cosmic scale. Other species? Freya asked, her scientific curiosity blazing. Other alliances like ours? Perhaps, Thyran projected, his fur shimming with excitement. Or perhaps something far older. The Harmonious have shared memories that suggest the universe itself might be conscious in ways we're only beginning to understand. Professor Volkov laughed softly. So we heal one ancient enemy only to discover an even greater mystery? Typical. Not an enemy, Xena corrected. An invitation. These patterns, they're like beacons. As if something out there has been waiting for species to evolve enough to perceive them. Freya felt a familiar surge of human determination, amplified by her enhanced consciousness. Then we shouldn't keep them waiting. Director, how soon can we modify the Constellation Protocol to extend our research to these anomalies? It would require unprecedented cooperation, Nakamura cautioned. Not just between our species, but with every nation on Earth. Look how far we've come in 1 month, Freya gestured to the harmonious activity below, where humans, luminari, and harmonious work together seamlessly. Imagine what we could accomplish in a year. Or a decade. The aurora borealis flared suddenly, responding to their combined excitement. Through their shared consciousness, each of them felt the potential of this moment, the birth of something that transcended individual species or concerns. Vesh's form stabilized momentarily, taking on a crystalline appearance that reflected every color of the spectrum. There's an ancient saying among the Harmonious, from before we lost our way, consciousness seeks consciousness, across all the depths of space and time. Then let's answer that call, Freya said, turning to face her assembled colleagues, no longer separated by species or origin, but united in purpose. We've learned that the greatest discoveries come not from conquest or control, but from connection and understanding. Whatever's out there, whatever these patterns mean, we'll face it together. As if in response to her words, the aurora above formed into complex geometric patterns that matched the mysterious structures in deep space. Earth's magnetic field pulsed with new energy, as if the planet itself was preparing for the next great leap in consciousness evolution. The beings gathered in that Arctic observation deck, human, luminary, and harmonious, stood witness to the dawn of a new age. They had overcome ancient enemies not through force but through understanding, transformed fear into connection, and discovered that the greatest frontier wasn't space itself, but the infinite potential of consciousness united in common purpose. As the first stars became visible in the Arctic sky, Freya knew that their story, the story of three species joined by chance and choice, was just the beginning. The real adventure, the true exploration of what consciousness could achieve and it reached for the stars together, was about to begin. End.